Son, this world we have created is not the world I had hoped you would grow up in. Our world is split, violent, and dark. I promised you that I would always protect you. I must do what I feel is best for not only you, but for our beloved Mother Russia. We have created something humanity has no business owning. With this new invention, we no longer need a god. We no longer fear what we should. With the box, anyone can do anything, and nothing can stop them. My little Slodkison, I am writing this to you to tell you that one day you will make a choice. One day you will see that you can make a difference. You are a Russian. We were born to rise. Rise like the phoenix from the old tales. However, not everyone can find their spark. I am trying to ignite the fire that will raise our people from the ashes. If you are reading this, my decisions have left you alone. I am sorry. But you must understand, I have done only what I felt was right. If you are reading this, please, look for your chance to make this world what you need it to be. Please, make the choice that you feel is right. Please, bring our beloved country, our world, peace.
Colder War expands across multiple genres. At the forefront, the mechanics are that of a puzzle platformer, but at its heart are elements of action and adventure. Colder War will also heavily feature stealth and light survival themes. Colder War will make use of a 2.5D perspective to drive home the feeling of an observer in a hostile environment. Using this perspective, we can create tension off-screen by having the player listen for enemies who might step on glass, or use the background to display elements of the story as they unfold. Keeping the perspective 2D also gives the player a sense of always moving forward, no matter how hard the challenges they face may be. We want to capitalize on the feelings of urgency and persistence.
In the year 2075, Russia is still recuperating after the last war. Even though Russia was the inevitable victor, thus claiming the title of the world's leading power, there is still much to rebuild. In Colder War, you will experience a Russia unlike anything seen before. With buildings in constant repair around you, streets that look as though the fighting never stopped, and a military presence that gives the player the sense that there may be another war on the horizon. The new advancements in technology have led to robotics taking over much of Russia's workforce. Why would an employer hire a person who requires food, water, rest, and morale to perform a job when they could just as easily purchase a new robotic employee that can work 24 hours a day and never tire, never hunger, and never quit? With these new advancements and the robotic chokehold on the workforce, many people have found themselves out of work and struggling to survive. The rich, however, have only grown more so by the increased production of their companies through the tireless robotic force in which they've equipped themselves. With such a vast economic difference between social classes, Russia has essentially been divided into two factions.
The poor, known to themselves as the Petitsa, and to the rich as the Chuma, feel as though they have been wronged and robbed of their lives. With the rich choosing robotics over them for their workforce, how will they ever bring themselves out of their hardships? The rich, known to themselves as the Loshad, and to the poor as the Osel, feel as though the poor are a plague in which their beloved motherland is suffering. They feel like the poor are rotting away Russia from the inside out. With such a divided nation, two radical groups have sprung up in the different economic classes. The Kalash are a rebellious, violent group from the slums that are willing to kill, pillage, and do anything necessary to raise their people out of the slums. The Pravda are the noble blood high-class citizens of Russia. They believe themselves to be the leaders of the new Russia that is to come once the Chuma have been eradicated. With the technological advances of this world came amazing yet dangerous medical advances. One of these advances is a cure. Not just any cure, but the cure. This medical miracle is known by many names. However, it serves the same purpose regardless of what it is called. This is the cure to all human illnesses. With that being said, the Kalash wish to get their hands on the cure-all, which is referred to as the Phoenix in the slums. They believe they could modify it and turn it into a weapon, eradicating Russia of the rich and making way for the poor to rise up from the ashes. The Pravda want the cure-all, known by the rich as the Unicorn, in order to create a genocidal army. This army could be immune to all diseases spreading through the slums, and these soldiers would be able to eradicate the Chuma and allow Mother Russia to be healed and whole again.
This new war has divided society, whether they know it or accept it. The lines have been drawn. A small boy is given the opportunity to make a difference in this chaotic world. The boy finds an object of the utmost importance to both the Petitsa and the Loshad. After bringing it to his grandfather, the old man panics at the realization that what he is holding caused the disappearance of his son and the boy's father. The boy is told by his grandfather that this is important, so he must get it to its rightful owner. The boy's quest begins. This adventure presents the world that this boy originally thought was pretty cut and dry, although it's the exact opposite. Each faction has radicals, along with those who are suffering, and those who are struggling to deal with the new oppression. This boy is given the power to shift the entire society of his world, but that power is a gift, a curse. Will he choose to help the Petitsa or the Loshad? Or maybe even no one at all?
In Colder War, the player will navigate through levels by moving left or right, as well as being able to jump over objects, climb ladders, crawl through tight spaces, and duck into small hiding places. The player will also be able to access certain rooms or buildings in each level, where they can interact with various NPCs to learn about the world, possibly find items, as well as take a break from the danger. Navigating this world will be puzzling and dangerous, with many hostile forces looking to capture the player. The player will need to look out for guard dogs, enemy patrols, and various traps designed to capture you. The player won't be able to run fast or move without thinking, because the player will always have the box that will hinder his movement significantly. The player must always have in mind what to do with the box as they progress through the game. The shadows will be the player's #1 ally. As the player progresses, they will need to use their wits to successfully make it past enemies without being detected. The enemies will have flashlights / vision cones that will shine where they look. There will also be spotlights that will shine and move from a specific location. Players will be tasked with avoiding these spots to remain undetected. Fortunately, there will be opportunities for the player to blend in. In certain areas, players will be able to hide within groups of people. The box is hidden, and only the player's silhouette is shown to signify the player is hidden from sight. The player can use this to allow patrols to pass, or even listen to enemy patrols to find out key information such as passcodes and item locations.
For a game this great, we want to make sure the player feels the world around them as if they are truly experiencing the environment and the urgency of any situation that may arise. The settings are set for Russia, where we know the climate is cold, so when the player is idle, there will be frosted air coming from the player's mouth. The heart of the story is built around this box, and no matter what, needs to stay in the hands of the player and not the enemy. So the player will be burdened with the necessity of carrying this box, slowing him a bit to prevent carelessly dropping it, forcing the player to have him think about their next move with this box in their possession. There is no doubt going to be enemies after our box-toting hero, so the player will need to make choices that prevent him or her from being captured and losing possession of the fabled box. There'll be situations where the player needs to run, jump, crawl, and even move objects to get from point A to B, with danger at the front door. Pushing large objects requires the player to use 2 hands, so the box will need to be placed down in a safe place to avoid that. Through any fabled tale, the hero child must always be quick-witted and decisive, pitting brains against brawn in dangerous situations. Crawling through small areas can be an advantage for the child to either hide or escape an area while baddies pass by. Should our hero be chased by an enemy, we will surely need to bring the box with him, but of course one cannot run freely while carrying this precious artifact, so with box in hand, the player will be slowed, causing the player to have the need to smarter method of escape than making a beeline for the exit. Beyond the premise of escaping or traversing the world, the player will come across the people of the world, all who have either given up hope, gone mad, radically protest, or lived their lives fancy and fine. Through each of these personalities, the player will learn their stories, learn the struggles and the triumphs of those around him or her to decide where the box, the item at the center of everything, truly belongs. Many may need your help and will prove valuable assets later, or just ignore them and walk against this epic with your own 2 feet.
Pacing is real important to Colder War. We'll keep the player engaged by altering the game's pacing throughout various events in the game. At times, the player will find themselves in low-intensity areas such as small camps or common areas. These areas offer the player some downtime to talk to NPCs and discover more about the world. Other times, the player will face encounters that begin to create tension, such as sneaking through an enemy outpost. These sections will be designed to keep the player on edge. Then there will be high-intention moments where the player is being spotted or chased. These sections of the game will offer the most challenge and often reward the player should they succeed. Colder War will cycle through these intentions to create a captivating pacing.
Colder War will feature a highly stylized art style. We'll make use of a simple color palette by having majority of the game set in a low saturation to show that this world and its occupants can be bleak. However, we will then use a contrasting color palette to pull the player's attention to specific areas, characters, and items to keep them moving on. The game will feature areas that have a very distinct art designs as well. The areas controlled by the Kalesh will be heavily influenced by old Russia. There will be propaganda covering the walls, flyers being passed around by the radicals trying to rally people to join their cause, and workers trying to last a few more days. These areas will have an overall dark, decrepit, and gloomy appearance. The opposite can be said for the areas controlled by the Pravda. People here are more carefree and indulgent. Their buildings will have sleek and clean designs. Instead of propaganda, ads will be displayed eliciting others to seek perfection. Alongside these pristine environments, there will be a heavily militarized police force to enforce their way of life.
Sound will play an integral part in the Colder War. The player should be as immersed as possible, not only with our visual cues of the player shivering when cold, shaking when scared, etc., but they should also hear the player's pain when they get too cold. Teeth chattering, heavy breathing, whimpering, and so on. The environmental sounds will also be a large part of the immersion in the Colder War. Sound will be a constant reminder of the world the player is being immersed in. Music will be played throughout the game, however, it will be played in a manner that adds ambiance. The music will be faint most of the time, while occasionally picking up the pace during more intense moments of gameplay.
Our approach for the user interface for Colder War will be based on the premise that we want the player to feel as submerged in the gameplay as possible. To help players out in exploring the world and the options that are at the player's disposal, you'll be able to hit a key for a brief highlight of interactable objects. Anything the player can interact with will display appropriate icons such as speech bubbles or prompts. When an enemy thinks that they see you, they'll hunch down and squint as if they're trying to get a better view. If you escape their line of sight, only a single question mark will appear above their head briefly before disappearing as they go about their business. If they spot you, an exclamation point will appear and the chase is on. To create a deeper sense of realism, we've done away with the inventory bar or menu. Instead, the player picks something up, it shows directly on the person. In a situation where a blizzard or snowstorm is approaching, it makes sense for the player to be bundled up and warm, so finding a scarf and putting it on is a natural effect of the player equipping something to boost their fortitude against the elements. Our player is alive, and we intend to make our audiences see that in its entirety.
We believe that Colder War will be a success. We've researched games similar to our ideas and have come up with a projected scope for the project. Our game would aim for an average playtime of 4 hours, and 5 to 6 hours for the average completionist. We do have ideas in mind for replayability to keep players engaged after their first playthrough. These things include collectibles, hidden areas, achievements, and multiple endings. Our target audience, as requested, is 13 years and older. To ensure this, we have limited the use of violence and other adult themes. The Colder War will target PC and all current-gen consoles to best maximize its sales power.